The next day, at her shop, she wakes up and pukes a green slimy liquid, and then gets spooked to see some spirits all around the market. Meanwhile, Mina notices that customers are not buying flowers from her shop but from Yuning's shop, so she goes there to fight her, saying that they both sure are using a charm. She then starts destroying her shop, saying that she is sick of her and her evil family, and we see Rahayu watching them, and then a snake moves towards Mina. Only then Mina's leg begins hurting and she falls down, and when Riri and the other shopkeeper come there to help her, they get horrified to see that her leg is festering. Later, the neighbors come to their house and ask Yuning to come out, and when Ratman tries to calm them down, they ask him to stay out of this. Rahayu comes downstairs to open the gate, but Yuning stops her, and then Servo comes there and asks them what's going on. A man says that a lot of people have been hurt since that woman came here, and it was Samedi's wife who had been putting a spell on them. Servo warns them not to mention the dead. His wife and daughter came here to make a living, so they should not bother them. He says he is also well aware that some of them have evil spirits working for them, to which the man says if something bad happens, he will be the one to blame, and then they all leave there. Later that night, Rahayu sees a flock of bats above her house. She closes her eyes for a moment, and they turn black when she opens them again, and meanwhile, the snake kills Mina by suffocating her. After a while, when Riri comes to her room with food, she gets shocked to see that her mom is dead. The next day, neighbors gather at Yuning's house and they blame them for Mina's death. Serwo says even if it is true that Samedi was a sorcerer, he has already passed away, and there is no way Yuning and Rahayu could cause any harm to Riri and Mina. The man says they might have let him defend them before, but now he can see that people want justice. Serwo asks them if are they going to behead them too, to which a woman says that first they need to acknowledge their wrongdoing, and then they can determine an appropriate punishment for them. Hearing this, Rahayu says they won't admit to things they didn't do, and asks them why do they keep bothering their family. She then asks them to leave her property and begins throwing things at them. Ratman tries to calm her down, and Serwo says they can't make someone say they did something they didn't do, and they can't tell the police because they don't have strong evidence. Serwo says that God is the only one who knows if Yuning is using black magic or not, so she will have to swear and look God in the eye by performing a pachom oath. Rahayu says she will do that and will show that they are innocent, but the man says Yuning will perform the oath. Mina died because someone was using black magic, and before she died, she was arguing with Yuning, so it must be her who used black magic on her. Serwo says if Yuning agrees to take the oath and remains alive thereafter, he wants all of them to stop bothering them. They agree with his idea and then leave there. The next day, Sentot visits there and tells Serwo that these shophouses need to be cleansed, and Rahayu needs to be exorcised again, to which Serwo says people need proof, and the pachom oath is the answer. Sentot says he is just making things worse, to which he says maybe he is the real person Rahayu is having so much trouble, and now he is taking over her father's wealth. Later that night, everyone gathers at the mosque to witness the oath, and during this, Rahayu and his brother stay at home, but we see Rahayu walking in a trance state. Here the oath ritual begins and they wrap Yuning in a shroud, and Serwo asks her to repeat the pachong oath after him. She follows the instructions, and after a while as her eyes close, she enters into another dimension. On the other hand, we see Rahayu praying in the prayer room, and Yuning finds Samedi there performing a ritual. Here the spirits appear behind Rahayu, and Yuning gets haunted by those spirits there in another realm, and Rahayu ends her prayers. She gets possessed and roars at a spirit, causing that spirit to kneel before her, and after a while, other spirits kneel before her too. Yuning then finds Rahayu sitting there surrounded by those spirits, and she witnesses a green smoke entering her mouth. Suddenly she wakes up, causing the crowd to get spooked, and seeing this, Serwo says that she has kept her promise just as they all wanted, so he asks everyone to leave because nobody will suffer tonight. The next day, Ratman tells Rahayu that he heard people in the market saying that Salmon is going to buy her shophouse soon, to which she says that's just rumors and then leaves there. Now when she returns home, she sees Yuning with the buyers, and she goes inside the house without saying anything. After the buyers leave, when Yuning goes to her, Rahayu asks her are those people Sentot's men. Yuning tries to explain to her that Sentot helped her father find repentance, to which she says so she now agrees with him that her father was so bad that he had to repent. She tells her that her father used to engage in connections with black magic from another realm, and she knew that even before they got married. She also reveals that during the pachom oath ceremony yesterday, the evil spirits that granted him power were all pursuing her. Rahayu asks her then how she is still alive, to which she tells her that she saw her there and she was among them. Rahayu says Sentot's desire to take over her father's money is the real devil, and Yuning gets spooked to see her getting possessed right in front of her. We then see a spirit behind her controlling her, and saying her uncle who always tries to look holy is the real devil. That night, he was the one who planned the murder. On the day they were kicked out of their home by the community, there was one person among them who had a wound on his face. She was the one who caused that wound, and Sentot knew her father's murderers. She asked her to stop believing in how holy Sentot is or her fate will end up like her real mother, and then she faints and falls down. Later, when she wakes up, she finds that it's evening already. She goes to the market to Ndang's shop and apologizes to her for being late, but Ndang tells her that she is fired, so she doesn't need to come to work tomorrow. Rahayu gets really upset with this and goes to that prayer house, which then turns into her old house. She goes upstairs to her dad's room where she starts crying, remembering all the people who taunted her for being the daughter of a sorcerer, and only then does someone throw her dad's beheaded head at her, due to which she becomes more upset, and we see that the green smoke is entering inside her through her mouth, and she becomes possessed again. A snake then comes out of her mouth, and we see that snake entering into her house and moving towards Muning, and another snake that also came out of her mouth goes to Ndang and bites her on her leg. Meanwhile, Muning notices the snake on her bed and runs away, but when she looks back, she finds that the snake is not there, but then she gets spooked to see it on Aji's neck. Muning catches that snake and Rahayu also comes back to her senses, and when she leaves there, we see those spirits standing there. Here we see Muning trying to kill that snake, and when Rahayu reaches there, she tries to stop her, but she pushes her away, and finally kills that snake. However, when she calms down, she gets shocked seeing that she has killed Aji, and we are then shown that it was not actually that snake but Aji who she was killing, thinking of the snake. Samedi's spirit then appears there and she begs him to forgive her and says she deserves to die. He extends his hand toward her and forces her to hang herself. Rahayu tries to stop her but she faints and falls, and Nuning kills herself by hanging. Later, we see Rahayu in Sentot's boarding school, where his wife Ajing tells her that she is safe here. She says finally they managed to get her here, and asks her if they are going to do an exorcism on her like they did back then. Ajing tells her that Sentot always saw her father as if he was his own son, so he wouldn't harm her. Rahayu says he has been targeting her father's money for quite some time, to which she tells her that he is a rich man, both in material possessions and compassion. He built this boarding school and other facilities for the people, so that everyone could stay and study there for free, so he didn't need her father's money. Later, she tells Sentot that he has to gain Rahayu's trust to really save her. She thinks she is somehow connected to that prayer room where her father used to do his practice. There is something there that keeps drawing her back, and it's tied her to two different realms. Later that night, we see Aji's spirit telling something to Ajing, and suddenly she wakes up from sleep. She wakes up Sentot and says that he must go to that prayer room, and once he gets there, he needs to find that snake cane. The next morning, he reaches there with his guys in search of the snake, and meanwhile, Ajing tells Rahayu that she didn't kill her brother and mother. Rahayu says those snakes were coming out of her, to which she says they do not belong in this world and it was beyond her control, and those spirits have been manipulating her. She was just like her when she was younger, very sensitive, and she couldn't control her own power. It took a lot of victims including her own family. Sentot helped her and guided her. These evil spirits feed on grudges and remorse, and they are comfortable staying in their body. They must get out of their body. They need to completely cleanse them. Meanwhile, Sentot finds a human skull with some other witchcraft items in that prayer room and Rahayu's photo with it. He straight away goes to Serwo and throws that thing to him, which he gets shocked to see. One of these guys then brings that snake cane to him, and Serwo tries to get it back, but Sentot tells him to stay away from Rahayu and all of his students. Later that night, he begins the exorcism on Rahayu to cleanse her, but Rahayu also sees the man there who had killed her father, and she says she is not willing to let them go. However, Sentot begins sprinkling holy water on her, causing her to get possessed, and then as he throws that snake cane in a bucket full of soil, all the bulbs in the school explode and it gets dark there. We then see her levitating in the air surrounded by those spirits and that green smoke enters her mouth. Sentot tries to remind her that he is her grandfather and that he is here to save her, but she says she knows he murdered her father. Sentot swears it wasn't him, to which she says but he knows who murdered him, and here it is revealed that it was actually Serwo who was after his father's wealth, and he used Rahayu for this. It was he who instigated Sentot's son Wahid and his friend Husni to steal that snake cane from Samedi, but Serwo told his friend to get rid of Samedi and not let Wahid know. Rahayu asks him if it is not a sin to hide the sins of other people, to which he says they are all sinners who seek forgiveness from Allah, to which she says but he will never get her forgiveness. A possessed Wahid then comes there and starts beating him, and when Ajing tries to stop him, he pushes her back and finally kills him. Now when he comes back to his senses, he asks forgiveness from Sentot and then kills himself too. Rahayu tells her that they deserve to die, to which Ajing says they have no right to decide who should die. Rahayu says but they got to decide if her father would live or die, and asks her now what she wants to say. Agent gets up and begins reciting prayers by putting her hand on her head, causing those spirits to leave her body. After a few days, Agent tells her that Khanzab is an evil spirit who disturbs people during prayers. However, the one who approaches her isn't just Khanzab, but darker beings that use Khanzab as a way to take full control of her body. Rahayu asks her if can she really expel or control them, to which she says she surrenders herself to God. Devils live in their hearts where they feel revenge and anger. She has to be able to let go of these feelings, including her anger at Sarwo and everyone else who has hurt her. She must decide for herself how she will utilize the ability that God has bestowed upon her. She then finds Ratman there, who tells her that he grew up here and the movie ends here.